May 3rd, 2021. Can I get a second to approve those minutes?
Approves.
Couldn't hear you.
This is Daisy. I motion to approve.
Okay. Any discussion? Anybody have any issues with the approval? Okay. We are good to go, Chris. We have an approval. Okay, now we get on to our main presentation, our Eastchester Road presentation by the Bronx Department of Transportation. So who's ever taking the lead, please do so, identify yourself, and off we go.
Hi, good morning. Good evening. This is Navardo Lopez, Bronx Borough Commissioner for New York City DOT. And tonight we are going to give a presentation about proposed roadway changes on Eastchester Road. So I wanted to just simply introduce my colleagues from DOT, from the Bronx office, Keith Kalb, Matthew Arancio, and Holly Malone. And then from our Bikes and Greenways group, we have Eileen Botti, and we have Olguin Alcindi, who is the project manager and who will be giving the presentation. So just a quick introduction. You know, we announced earlier this year that we're going to be doing e-scooter pilot in the Bronx. We spoke with you about that last month's meeting, and now we are going to talk about some of the projects that we're doing as a result of the e-scooter pilot. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Olguin to give the presentation.
Can I ask everybody to please hold your questions to the end? Okay, please let everybody talk, and then you can hold all your questions. Thank you.
Sorry, this is Matt from the Bronx Borough Commissioner's office as well. And just before we get into this presentation, from what we've heard from the community board, there are some questions about e-scooters specifically. We ask that at least after this presentation, you keep your questions specific to this presentation, and then we can stay and answer any additional questions specifically about e-scooters. So I know that there were some questions about e-scooters specifically, but let's just focus on this presentation first, and then we will address any additional concerns about e-scooters afterwards. Thank you.
Matt, the e-scooter issue is down on the road. I mean, it's on the agenda, but it's another point. So let's finish with this presentation. All questions kept until the end. First going to be asking questions only the members of the committee. Then after that, we're going to open to the public.
Thank you, Chris.
You're welcome.
Can everyone see my screen here?
We're good.
Great.
Yes.
Great. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Olguin Alcinde. I'm a senior project manager at New York City DOT, and tonight we'll be going over this presentation to discuss bicycle lane network expansions in the East Bronx on Eastchester Road, Waters Place, and other connections. So during tonight's presentation, I'll be covering some background about the project area before we move on to the proposal and the details of each corridor. And at the very end, again, I'll also summarize what we've covered for any comments or questions. So just to provide an overview of some of our project goals for this area, this project would work to build robust on-street bicycle network in CB 11 and 12, support anticipated increase in scooter and bicycle ridership in the East Bronx, improve road safety for all roadway users, and lastly, we hope to create new connections to key destinations in this area, which includes hospitals as well as parks and their connecting greenways and bicycle paths. So again, this is something that BC's office has mentioned, but there is some interest in improving bike and scooter access in this part of the East Bronx. So in 2019, we saw an increase in daily cycling commuter trips across the city, and more recently, an anticipated increase in scooter ridership on commercial streets with our e-scooter pilot program. Starting this year, 6,000 scooters will be deployed in the East Bronx pilot zone, which is identified here on the right. And this would begin with projects in the Northeast Bronx. However, there are a number of bike lane projects proposed in the future as part of our pilot program. Future proposals include Allerton Avenue, White Plains Road, and East 222nd Street, among others. But tonight we'll only be focusing and presenting the design for Eastchester Road. So Eastchester Road also comes out of our response to the commitments to expand citywide protected bike lane network as laid out in our 2019 Green Wave Plan. So in our analysis of fatalities, we found that 90% of fatalities occurred on streets without bike lanes, and we would look to address this by building out 30 miles of protected bike lane annually with a focus on better design, education, and outreach. And to speak further on protected bike lanes and safety, we looked at crash data for protected bike lanes across the city and found that streets that included protected bike lanes saw a 15% drop in crashes with injuries and a 21% drop in pedestrian injuries. So overall, protected bike lanes have been found to increase safety for all roadway users, not just cyclists. And when selecting a route for this area, we look to several factors. Namely, we look to make a continuous north-south connection that would close the gaps in the existing bike network. And in addition, we'd like to access otherwise difficult to reach destinations such as Pelham Bay Park. And Eastchester Road also overlaps with many key destinations in the neighborhoods, including Bronx Park, Williamsbridge, as well as multiple schools and hospitals. And to provide a little bit more background on the existing network, in 2009, we began developing the network in the East Bronx by installing standard bike lanes on Allerton Avenue. And in the subsequent years between 2010 and 2017, we would return to build out the bike network with additional standard lane connections and improvements to the wide parking lanes that we installed on Laconia Avenue, East 233rd, Bronxwood, and Burke Avenue. And these past projects basically all work together to provide a robust bike network in the East Bronx. And finally brings us to this year, where we're proposing to respond to the expected increase in scooter ridership by developing connections to the existing bike network on Eastchester Road. So in terms of design, there are three treatments available in our toolkit, which basically work to provide bicycle facilities on streets with varying widths and uses. Shower markings, which are shown in the first image, guide cyclists on streets where cyclists must share the roadway with motorists. And our standard bicycle lanes in the middle provide a greater degree of separation from vehicles for cyclists by providing dedicated stripe space in the roadway. And lastly, protected bike lanes are completely separate, separate cyclists from the travel lane with the use of floating parking as shown in the last image, or by vertical protective elements such as bollards. And to provide a broader look at the limits of our proposal, the routes highlighted here in purple would work to address our previously mentioned goals of closing gaps in the existing East Bronx network, as well as to provide new connections to hospitals and other healthcare facilities and to the neighboring Bronx River, Mosholu Pelham, and the Hutchinson River Greenways. The proposed routes would include lanes on Eastchester Road between Laconia Avenue and Waters Place between Eastchester and Westchester Avenue, Burke Avenue between Eastchester and Laconia, and lastly, Morris Park Avenue between Newport and Eastchester Road. And this is all highlighted in purple on the right. So just to dive into the details of each of these segments, starting with the first segment from our map, Eastchester Road between Laconia Avenue and Pelham Parkway North. Currently, we have 2 travel lanes in each direction, as you can see in the top cross section, with the outermost travel lanes currently unmarked and shared with the curbside parking. So in our proposed condition, we would establish 1 travel lane in each direction and create standard width travel and parking lanes, where before they were non-standard. And then we would then repurpose that space to provide dedicated space for cyclists and to establish dedicated left turn bays. And this would look similar to the bottom right image, where the median would be painted until the start of the turn lane. And the standard bike lane on this stretch would work to connect cyclists to the existing network and the Mosholu Pelham Greenway. Further south on Eastchester Road, between Pelham Parkway North and Pelham Parkway South, the existing conditions kind of change. Currently, there are 2 travel lanes with turn lanes in each direction. So in our proposal, we would look to consolidate those 3 lanes to 2 lanes in each direction. And the new alignment would work to match with the cross sections from the previous segments we showed. And it would allow us to repurpose the additional space to provide curbside bike lanes in each direction. Again, further south on Eastchester Road, the existing conditions match some of those previous slides, in which we have 2 travel lanes in each direction. So in this case, however, in our proposed, we would look to establish 1 northbound travel lanes, but maintain the existing southbound lanes and provide dedicated space for cyclists. And in doing so, we would maintain the parking and curb access as some of the more various land uses that we saw along the west curb, and also more of the commercial activity that is in this area. Further south, between Sackett Avenue and Waters Place, the existing conditions, again, are the same, and we would still maintain 2 southbound travel lanes and look to establish that 1 northbound lane. However, the roadway alignment does change as Eastchester Road splits off here to become Sackett Avenue in 1 direction. And so here where we're able to provide a safe connection from the standard lanes to a 2-way path, that's where we provide that along the east curb where we have an edge condition available to us. There are also a number of bus stops at this location, well, predominantly, like mostly 2, and we would maintain those existing locations. Cyclists would continue on to Waters Place between Eastchester Road and Westchester Avenue, where currently the existing conditions again match what we saw on Eastchester Road. In the proposed, we would look to establish 1 northbound travel lane between McCroney Street and Bronx State Hospital in each direction. Sorry, just 1 northbound travel lane. And then further south, further east, between the hospital entrance and Fig Avenue, we would establish 1 travel lane in each direction. And so in doing so, we would be able to provide the 2-way parking protected bike path on the north curb of Waters Place. And at those existing bus stop locations that we have here, we would look to maintain those stops, but install new bus boarding islands to facilitate those bus passengers. Going back a little bit further north to above Pelham Parkway North, we also have the connection on Burke Avenue between Eastchester Road and East Gun Hill Road. Currently, the street here is 1 travel lane in each direction and it's unmarked, but we would create standard width parking lanes in this direction and also guide cyclists through the area with shared lane markings. And this would make that connection to the existing facility on Burke Avenue. Further west of here, we currently have 2 travel lanes in each direction with wide parking lanes, and we would look to establish 1 travel lane in each direction, maintain the parking, but also provide a dedicated space here. And so this is, again, to connect cyclists from the existing facility and Eastchester Road to the Bronx River Greenway and Bronx Park. Lastly, on Morris Park Avenue, between Newport Avenue and Eastchester Road, currently we do have an existing bike facility on Morris Park Avenue. Just for this short stretch where we have a gap leading up to Eastchester Road, we would look to maintain the existing angled parking in this area, but guide cyclists coming off of the standard bike lanes to make the connection to the existing lanes on Herring Avenue and Yates Avenue with shared lane markings. As you can see, that short stretch highlighted on the map. And just to provide a broader look at the design across the entire project, the map shown here provides the limits of the protected, standard, and shared bike lane facility to be included on each corridor. Lastly, pedestrian improvements would be included across the whole corridor with the inclusion of shorter crossing distances and high visibility crosswalks. However, new pedestrian spaces would also be included in our design, and those locations are highlighted on the map on the right. And those would be on Eastchester Road and Waters Place. And so for those designs, in some areas where we have highlighted in yellow, we would include painted pedestrian islands similar to what you see in the top left example. But then at locations where we might have a proposed bus boarding island that overlaps with some crosswalks, they would also work to provide access for bus passengers, but also serve as a refuge for pedestrians who are crossing the street. So in that bottom image where you can see the red tactile strips at the intersection, pedestrians could use that to refuge before crossing the street. And so, oh, sorry. And so overall, Eastchester Road, Waters Place, and Brook Avenue, as well as the Morris Park Avenue connections, work to improve safety in this area and provide access to major destinations, including schools, hospitals, greenways, and parks. As far as the implementation timeline, 2021 outreach to CB 11 and 12 would potentially be followed by two-phase implementation, where in the first phase of 2021, we would pursue the connections on Burke Avenue, as well as the traffic calming and standard bike lanes on Eastchester Road between Laconia Avenue and Pelham Parkway. Further south, where the land use changes considerably and we require more resources for some of those bus islands, we would look to install the section south of Pelham Parkway North and provide those standard and protected bike lane connections, as well as the connections on Morris Park Avenue. Thank you.
So my question is, let's take Water Place as an example. Do you guys do like a survey to see how many people that work there live in our community? And it sounds like those are the type of people that would really take advantage of something like the project you're suggesting.
Right. So something that we mentioned in this timeline is that we would look to come back for these sections on Waters Place so that we can have additional time for outreach and speaking to people and like observing the corridor a little bit more before we go in and install.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. This is Lisa. I'm on the committee. It's not really a question. I had a hard time following because there were no pictures of the intersections that you were speaking about. So I think it would be helpful, instead of showing the same example that you keep showing of what it will look like, showing us what it currently looks like side by side with how you're proposing to change it. Because I got lost after like the first section, because I can't envision what you're talking about.
Lisa, what section are you concerned with? Because
I mean, all of them, because each one shows the example.
so
right here.
here's examples of existing and proposed for each of these
Right,
locations.
But you're also showing Burke in
Wait,
that.
hold on, Debbie. I'm still talking. I need to see the example of the actual location. Like you're showing me an example of what it will look like of another one that's already done. But I can't see
on the
this
left-hand
actual
side is the existing, Lisa.
Where is the existing? I see one photo.
On the left-hand side is it's a drawing of what it's going to look like.
Right, but I want to see a photo of what it looks like now.
Right. We don't have a photograph per se of the street, but the graphic on the top left that's marked existing shows a cross section to essentially show what the street looks like right now. So currently on Burke Avenue, there'd be 11-foot travel lane in each direction with the median, which is shown here, and it would be a wide parking lane.
I understand that, but it's not helpful to not actually see. When you guys have shown us presentations in the past, you always have shown us, this is a photo of what the street looks like right now, and this is a photo of what we're looking to do, or you show a rendering of what you're looking to do. Like, I don't think I've ever seen not a presentation that doesn't show the current street, a photo of the current intersection or street that you guys are proposing to change. So it just makes it hard to follow what you're talking about, especially because I'm familiar with this neighborhood, so I know a lot of these streets are complicated. So to not actually see the street you're talking about just makes it hard to follow.
I 100% agree with that too, because like in the slide you have up, you're showing Burke. First of all, Burke's not not our community board. That's number one. Number two, when you're showing streets, when you're showing the renderings for streets in our area, you're showing examples from Brooklyn. We need real photos of our area that you're referring to.
Yeah, I mean, we have a standard presentation that pretty much follows the same that we've been following for many years. And they pretty much look almost all identical to this standard that we are showing here.
That's not true. You guys have shown us presentation when you just showed us the one for what's the last one? Not White Plains Road.
Bronxdale?
Bronxdale. You showed us pictures of the intersections. And even when you did Morris Park, you didn't show us every picture of intersection, but you showed us actual photos of intersections and what the issues were.
So Lisa,
And when you showed us, and when you did the parking lot over by Bronxdale, you showed us real photos in that too.
So, hey everyone, it's Navardo. I just wanted to sort of opine here. I think in this presentation, in those presentations, the reason in the Unionport, Bronx Park East, Bronxdale project, where we built out the sidewalk around the parking area, and also for the Bronxdale proposal, there we really focused on the intersections because those were irregular intersections where we were making changes to the actual intersections, because along Bronxdale you have those irregular intersections where the street that cross Bronxdale do so at like a diagonal angle. So we were making changes beyond the normal striping of the roadway. Here for Eastchester Road, we focused more on really the changes we're making to the lane markings, because we really aren't making changes to the intersections the way we were at Bronxdale and we were at Bronx Park East. But I think, the reason we're here tonight is to sort of talk about this. If afterwards you still need more information, I mean, we could definitely provide that. But I was just wondering if since we don't have the photos right now, it would be helpful to hear from you, like what is that you're having a hard time envisioning, and perhaps we could maybe talk through some of those changes.
I mean, pretty much everything. I kind of lost her after like the third slide when you're talking about bus stops and changing of, and streets that split. And I just totally lost it because I can't see what you're talking about.
So
and like,
perhaps
for instance, one of the questions what I wanted to ask was how come some streets have protected lanes and some don't? But if I could see them, then I can maybe see why. Like, okay, maybe this one's not wide enough. I could see how this street turns, but like, it's just really hard to follow. This whole presentation essentially was very hard to follow.
Right, and I understand that we definitely threw a lot of information out all at once. So I think we could definitely go back and sort of walk through the sections a little bit more carefully to sort of explain what we're doing. All the diagrams do show the width of the street, which is a very important factor in how we make changes.
Mm-hmm.
So, we can go back to Eastchester, to Eastchester and Pelham Parkway and walk through those changes again. The photos on the right of the presentation are really meant to be illustrative, and we try our best to find examples, that folks are familiar with in the district, in the borough. Sometimes if it's a new treatment, we may not have that, which is why we're using photos from other places. But, it's meant to show what it will look like on the street. So for example,
I don't mind that. That makes sense. But to show a photo of what it's going to look like and to not have a photo next to it of what it currently looks like, it's kind of not helpful.
Okay, and that's fair. That's a fair comment. I think that, we were trying to find a balance between providing a lot of information that was, digestible, but also being able to like not have a presentation that's like 100 pages long.
Right.
So this is right here. I'm trying to read this on my screen. Eastchester between Pelham Parkway and Pelham Parkway South. And what the top diagram is showing is a roadway right now where you have parking on the ends, and then a lane of traffic, and then the turn lanes.
Right. Just want to point out
Oh, sorry, not
in
not
either
parking.
direction so at the curb, currently there is no parking in this section. It's such a small section, and it would just
Right,
be
I was
through traveling in each direction on each side of the street. And then going
right. That's what
further-
in that area that was absolutely not making any sense because there's no parking from one
Right,
service
I was so
road to the other
confused.
service
And-
road.
Right,
Right.
this one confused me as well, because I was like, wait, there's no parking there. I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah, we wouldn't be removing parking as there is none here. Where there's currently 2 travel lanes
To the mark.
each direction and a turn lane in the middle, we would just consolidate the outer 2
So the
travel
reservoir-
lanes and provide a bike lane at the curb.
My issue there was with the hospital right there, with the precinct right there. I think it's really absurd to make one thorough lane and one turn lane in a highly congested, very first responder needed intersection. That's it to me.
So-
That's absurd to have a protected lane there. I understand the safety concerns, but
Right,
to
we
me
totally-
that's absurd.
We totally hear your concerns about the land use on the west curb, and that's why this area wouldn't necessarily overlap with this. The area that overlaps with some of the FDNY, NYPD facilities that you are mentioning, as well as the hospitals, would be on the west curb here, where we'd maintain parking. So we would not be affecting the land use on that west curb at all.
Hi, and I just want to add to that concern too about the previous block. This is Eileen from DOT. Sometimes the protected bike lanes can actually be used as a breakdown lane by first responders. So they actually often find that to be a benefit to them. So that last section that Wayne just showed with the curbside bike lanes can offer that extra space to pass through if there is stop traffic.
In that particular intersection, I don't even know how that would remotely be feasible.
And
Well, I
here, this
think
is just
also-
paint and markings there. Sure. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Eileen, didn't mean to interrupt. Debbie, I think it's also helpful to note that north of Pelham Parkway, we're creating 1 lane on Eastchester. So we're preserving the same capacity for cars making the left-bound movement.
Were there any more specific questions about some of the cross sections or any additional questions about the presentation in general?
I mean, I feel like I would have more, but I can't, it's just hard. I couldn't follow it. So I can't really ask
Well,
a lot of questions. I wish I could, but it's just, it's hard to visualize. Was trying to follow along on Google Maps and that didn't.
Nevada, can I chime in? What exactly Lisa is asking for is if you can get Google Maps from the top. And I remember you did the same thing with Morris Park, which shows how it is actual and how it can be different with this implementing of this road, whatever you call it. I mean, that would be great. You did it at that Morris Park. You can see it, like, for example, on top. It's simple to my understanding.
Well,
Chris,
that's what we tried doing here. Like the page that's being showed right now on the screen shows the top as the existing and the bottom as the proposed change. I think what Lisa's asking for is a photograph of the current roadway and a photograph of, like,
That's what I'm saying. If you get the Google map from satellite and you bring
Right.
it close,
You did
then
it
you
one,
can make it
did it
easy.
for that one section by the hospital, but that was the only one.
Exactly. You're right.
So, I mean, so do you want to focus on the section by the hospital, or do you want to stay on this section right now that we're on which is the intersection of Eastchester and Pelham Parkway.
Oh, sorry, I was like unmuting. No. This one, the hospital one was fine because you did show the image. I was able to really see what you were talking about. And this one, as you were talking, I pulled up my own Google Maps, so I was able to see it. I think the one that was a little confusing also was the where the road splits, where Eastchester splits to Sackett's, I think it is.
Okay.
And how that connection was happening.
Great. So I can actually focus a little bit more on that connection and that crossover for cyclists. So here is a top-down view of our design, which essentially shows the split at Sackett Avenue. So at some point where Eastchester and Sackett Avenue meet, the road is wider, but there is a pinch point at a northern intersection. So in order to get around this, we are routing the cyclists onto Sackett Avenue. So they would continue straight on Eastchester Road onto Sackett, just based off how the alignment kind of connects. And then they would continue south here where they can queue away from traveling vehicles to make the crossover to the two-way path on the east curb. Hope that.
Hey, Lisa.
Some of
Lisa, is this the
I
type
thought
of
that
view
was
that-
Stillwell.
I'm trying to digest it. I'm trying to.
sorry, just for clarity in terms of the image, this is Matt from the Bronx Borough Commissioner's Office. In terms of images that are helpful, is it this type of overhead view that you're looking for, Lisa? Like that shows the before and after? Because I know we did something like that for the Morris Park Avenue safety improvement. I'm not sorry, Bronxdale. We did it for Bronxdale where we showed the overhead view before and after like this. Is that what you're looking for, or are you just looking for pictures?
I mean, this is definitely more helpful than what you currently have. But yeah, pictures would also be helpful. But this is the design, right? This is not the before, right?
This is the proposal for the intersection of like at Eastchester Road where it splits at Sackett. So yeah, this is the proposal. This is the future condition.
Right. So if you had this with, and then side next to it, like this is what it looks like now. This is what we're proposing to do.
Right.
That's
Right.
what's helpful. Whether you do it this way or you do it with actual photos, I think either way would be helpful than what you have now. Because what you have now just it doesn't translate because it's not
Got it.
not real.
Okay.
Also,
Yeah, that makes sense because sometimes we do like a combination of the two, right? Because there's like it takes a while to produce these graphics, right? So that's why we want to be strategic and think about what is the most communicative where. But it is helpful to get that feedback from you that this is actually a graphic that helps, right? Because what we did for Bronxdale was we took a typical roadway section and did the before and after overhead like this. So you saw that, and then you saw specific intersections in the same way from above, before and after. So if you're saying that the sections that you saw previously that showed the lane widths and everything are not as helpful, but this overhead view is more helpful, that's something that like we'll figure out how to communicate better, right? Because it's all about the images and communicating this, right? And it'll take time to create graphics, but it's good to know what works better for you all and what doesn't. So thankfully Olguin was able to pull this up to give another visual example here. So that's feedback we can definitely work with you in a case.
With this particular picture of you're saying Sackett. If it's where I'm thinking you're talking about, isn't that Stillwell, not Sackett?
No, you're thinking of the wrong location, Debbie. You're thinking farther north of Morris Park Avenue, where it splits, and you take either Stillwell or Eastchester north to Pelham Parkway. This is south of the McDonald's. This is south of Morris Park Avenue. This is when you get to the deli. This is when you get right by across the street from Albert Einstein on Eastchester Road, right before you pass underneath the railroad. So this is the farther south location.
Like where it says in the green words, protected bike path, that's where you're saying Einstein is, and where...
No, so what I'm saying is that, so where it says, where's the green line that says east curb, that's the side that has the McDonald's, the deli, the automobile shops and everything. And then where it says Sackett Avenue in the image, that's the hospital side. That's the west curb. So
Right,
on the
that's
bottom
but
is the
that's
west
what I was
curb.
saying.
Yeah, and the
Okay.
top is the east curb.
Got it. Yeah, Debbie, I was
Okay,
doing the same thing. I thought it was Stillwell, and I was very confused for a minute. But then, yeah, I was thinking of a
But yeah,
completely different intersection.
see, right, exactly. So that's why I'm saying a real photo, not just a drawing
Yeah, that's
photo.
exactly
A
right.
real
Yeah, that's
photo
true.
helps
Real
put.
photos help.
Got it. Noted. Okay. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, like, like we've all been saying, this is a lot of different proposals to digest all at once as part of this project because Eastchester Road varies so much from area to area. But that's feedback that we can take into consideration to think about how we can communicate this better. So, thankfully, it's good that we're talking about it now.
Yeah, for sure. Because the presentations that you guys have done before have been great. I haven't always agreed with them, but I was at least able to understand them. This is the first one where I've just been lost for like 90% of the presentation.
And look, afterwards, like just as a follow-up to this meeting, right? If you all want to, we're going to post this presentation online, but if you want to talk about it again, we can certainly have a follow-up meeting where I just like walk through this with you, or representatives from our borough commissioner's office along with Olkeen have a more like in-depth conversation with you, if that's helpful too, like just to kind of keep the conversation going. Because yes, it is a lot of detail and it's helpful just to have some time to take a look at it and then have you come back to us with questions, and then we can field more questions as well. This is always a conversation, as you know. So, we're happy to have a follow-up meeting, hosted by the community board online, just to kind of go through additional details if need be.
And instead of us trying to dig around to find these slides, would it be possible if you can send these slides to the board, and then the board could forward it us to the committee members so that we can then try to figure out where these particular areas are in question that we're not fully understanding, and then we can probably have better questions for the next time.
Yeah,
For you,
I
Debbie,
agree.
Absolutely. We can absolutely do that. I mean, like we do that, we post these online. Normally if the board requests, we do share a link to the presentation posted online. It's typically posted as a PDF, but as a follow-up to this meeting today, or probably tomorrow morning rather, what I'll do is I'll share this with Chris and the board office, and they'll have the link to the presentation. And like I said, it's a PDF, so you just click the link and you can scroll through it at your leisure.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful because then we can take the time to kind of pull up a Google map and see exactly where these intersections are and what you're referring to. And then if we have questions, we can circle back.
Perfect. That sounds great. Like I said, we're happy to answer more questions, and this is one of those presentations that does take more time to digest.
And on a slight side note of that Sackett area, I mean, it was something I was going to bring up, but I'm not sure if it's a DOT or a DEP issue, but that particular intersection by the Amtrak, when it goes under the Amtrak, with the rain we just had, it was like a river. I mean, it was a lake over there. So I was wondering what could be done, who can look into fixing the situation over there.
Debbie, that's DEP. So just send a picture
Okay.
to, you can email Chris and myself, but like basically what we're going to do is send our HIQA, our Highway Inspection and Quality Assurance inspectors out there, and they're probably going to issue a citation to DEP to address the condition there. So
Right. I
Chris said
didn't know
Yeah.
whose ballpark it was.
So you can send us a picture though, and we will do what we need to do from there if that's helpful. But it's going to be a DEP issue.
Thanks.
Also along the same line, and I suspect this is not DOT, but I'm just going to ask anyway in case you guys know who it would be. The bike path that's on Pelham Parkway, the actual sidewalk, it's like a bike, I think it's a greenway, bike path / shared pedestrian walkway, has a ton of like potholes and trees that are coming up through the roots that are coming up through the concrete that make it actually dangerous to ride your bike on there. Who's actually responsible for that? Do you guys know? Is that
Yep,
Parks?
DOT.
Is that somebody else?
DOT, these are the gentlemen.
Is that DET? DOT? Okay.
DOT, yes.
Okay. Then I'm talking to the right people.
Actually, no.
No?
The Greenway is actually managed by the Parks Department, Chris.
Wait a minute. I thought the
But how
bike
could-
lane is all over DOT.
Greenway,
No,
which
it's
is
a
not
bike
on the
lane.
street. The Greenway, which is not on the street, is managed by Parks Department.
But how come the park says it's DOT?
But we can't speak for what Park says. It's just that the way the line of demarcation is, greenways are bike lanes that are inside of parks. So generally, that's why they're the entity that's responsible for it.
Okay. I've never asked Parks. I just thought of it right now because when I saw this presentation, I actually thought that's what it was going to be about. And I was like, good, someone's finally going to talk about those potholes. And since it's not, I'm happy to go circle back.
That's
to
on the
Parks.
southern.
Yeah.
That's on the southern part, Lisa.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's the southern. That's on the southern part.
Yeah, yeah, on the south. Yeah, on the south side.
It's
Yeah.
on the south side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was brought up in many parks meetings before they even started the Pelham Parkway project that they're currently stuck in right now. And it was like,
That's before my time.
oh, that's DOT, that's DOT. But that'll get, they were saying things will get done after they're done with the Pelham Parkway reconstruction, which will be probably in 2050.
We're gonna ask once more. Let's see how
Yeah,
they're gonna react.
I'll ask. I have no problem asking. I just figured while I have DOT here, I'd ask them. So
And,
Well, guess
and
what?
if
Lisa is
possible, it's always helpful to send some pictures. Like I said to Debbie before,
Mhm.
like pictures help us identify locations better, right? Because what you might say is a path might be something else, or we might understand differently. So, when possible in these conversations as a follow-up to them, if you share the pictures with Chris will share with us, and we can go through the kind of the shuffle and like triage which agency it belongs to and field it accordingly. So, I mean, a picture always helps. So if you have pictures of the conditions, we'll at the very least take a look. And if it's a DOT thing, we'll help address. And if it's not, we will put you in contact with the right folks.
sounds good. Thank you.
Any more questions from the committee?
Yeah, I actually have a question which is related to a meeting we had maybe 2-3 years ago. And it's not exactly to this, but this is bothering me. Okay, this is beautiful, and I thank you all for coming. It's a great presentation. Whether we understand it or don't understand it, it's a great presentation. But what still bothers me and what I've been talking about for, I don't know, 15, 18 years is good old Pelham Parkway and Boston Road. And this, to me, that should be priority one of DOT and Community Board 11. Cars are coming back. Cars are making illegal left turns past the light, and Allerton Avenue now is almost just as good. Allerton Avenue in the morning going westbound, starting to line up too. Is there any progress ever going to be made? And I know I've sent emails over the years, and I said at the meeting, 2-3 years ago, of lessening the traffic flow, especially now that everybody is now coming back to work after COVID. I'm sorry
Well-
I asked the question, but it just bothers me. It just bothers me that I sit there for 20 minutes on Boston Road till you make a turn.
Well, on Allerton, we made changes a few years ago as part of a project on Southern Boulevard where we added a second lane for about 1,000 feet from the Allerton ballpark all the way to Montchelou Parkway. So that has helped with the congestion. Because
I agree. I agree with you 100% on that one. That's helped down there, but coming back from Allerton, from good old, from us probably, who knows, from Kruger, from White Plains Road, all the way down till you get onto the entrance. I usually, not recently, but I usually outwalk the bus if I have to go to Metro North. And it's
This is
just getting
on-
worse. Well, I shouldn't say, again, I think I should say better. It's going to get worse.
Right. The challenge for Boston Road and also for Allenton is that those are the entrances to the highway. And you really can't address what goes on at those intersections until there's a redesign of the highway. And that is the purview of the state. I don't want to speak for the state, but I don't know if they have any projects lined up for those two intersections, for those two interchanges rather.
Okay, but I mean, Representative DOT, you definitely have to be seeing this with your own eyes. You have to be seeing it with your own eyes. It's there. It's the Bronx at its worst. I don't know if there's anything worse in the whole Bronx than that intersection.
Well, we have done in the past some, signal time changes. But again, because of the highway, which we don't own, you're going to need work on those on how those interchanges intersect with the local street grid. Like what I'm saying is that it's beyond our capacity to improve.
Okay, one of the things I know I recommended, which probably was 2 years ago, and they said it was a problem with the Parks Department, was from all those guys going, let me get this right, northbound on Boston Road. I said, why can't they just turn in by the zoo there and go northbound? Let them go northbound that way too on the Bronx River. Nope, we'd have to get a piece of land back from the Parks Department.
Well, you're referring to the entrance to the northbound Bronx River that would cut through the Parks Department's headquarters.
No. I'm between Leidig and Pelham Parkway South. And where the cars now go down there to go to the Bronx River South, there's a little entrance there for the Bronx River North. But they said for you to make a turn into there, you would have to ask permission from the Parks Department to give you back a piece of land. And to me, I'm not a DOT person, I'm a rabbi. I know the Bible better than I know traffic. That if you did that, you would get rid of tons of cars that are turning on Pelham Parkway. Tons. Is it a panacea? Absolutely not. But it's gone on deaf ears. I also, over the years, try to put up a sign on Waring for the guys that are going, get this right, the guys that are going south, let them turn on Waring and let them go up to the Bronx River down, all the way down where there's a little entrance down there. But again, it stays the same. And I'm not a prophet too. I think, God forbid, one day there's really going to be something bad down there. And that's it. There's buses, there's cars, there's trucks, there's everything. Honking. And the traffic agents, and this is not you guys, I know it's not you. The traffic agents are there in the afternoon, sitting in their cars, but in the morning, they're not even there. I've said my piece, and I realize it's not part of this meeting, but I just say in terms of priorities for Community Board 11, if you survey people on that Pelham Parkway every morning and you ask them about bicycles and speeding up this process, I don't think they'd have anything against bicycles, but they sure would want to speed up that process. Thank you for listening. I realize maybe there's no answer.
Thank you, Rabbi.
So, Rabbi, should we open to the public questions that they might have about this project?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Yes. Anybody from public, please unmute yourself.
Yes, I have a couple of questions for DOT. This is Robert Press. And I'm glad you guys mentioned the Southern Boulevard protected bike lane, because I was on Southern Boulevard yesterday and I was watching these ATVs, the four-wheelers, and the dirt bikes going through those protected bike lane, whatever you call them, stanchions, okay? And they were then weaving in between the cars. And if one weaved in front of me, okay? How are you going to protect those protected bike lanes from these ATVs that are going right over them? That's number one. And they're using those bike lanes to drive on now. Let's do them one at a time. Go ahead, Navarro.
Right. I can't speak, maybe the BC's office can speak a little bit more about Southern Boulevard, but for this project in particular, the segments in which we include protected bike lane would be protected by parked vehicles or the inclusion of those protected bus boarding islands. And so those would be a very those would be a very extreme physical deterrent for anyone pulling over into the bike path or trying to use the bike path to travel.
And let's then look at those bike islands as in Ward 8, Novardo, where you put them in when you decrease the width of the lanes on Broadway. So when a bus stops at that bus island, you now have only one lane of traffic going ahead, or as I see in the picture, you'll have no lanes of traffic going ahead when the bus stops at those boarding islands, like say on Westchester Avenue, correct? Is that not correct, what I'm saying?
Right, so in this case, the bus would be stopped at the stop and in the travel lane in the conditions where we would remove an additional northbound lane. However, we have found that the bus islands do help with quicker drop off and passenger pickup. And so they're not pulling into the curb and doing a slower drop off or pickup, but rather just stopping short to load passengers and continue on.
And what we're seeing on, go ahead.
And also what happens is that many times buses don't fully pull into the curb. So it does become a bit of an ADA issue when that happens.
But we're also seeing that when they have wheelchairs and they have to stay in the little island for maybe 10 minutes, that cars are going around into oncoming traffic. Are we not? And how many accidents have happened already?
Well, we don't have the data in front of us, Bob, but that could always be requested.
All right, I'll have to ask the police department for it. Now, the other final question will be, you're protecting the bike lanes, okay? Why are they some 5 feet wide, some 6 feet wide? Is a bicycle 6 feet wide on each? We see them on each side there sometimes. You saw in one of the proposals.
Right.
How wide is the bicycle? There we go.
Right, so this would be our typical condition for curbside bike lanes. We do have to keep in mind that cyclists do need some distance from passing vehicles, as well as parking. If they are adjacent to that, that's why we do include that additional buffer. And so, yeah, that would be our typical design.
So it's an 8-foot bike lane then?
So in this case, we have two-way traffic. And so that's why the width of the bike lane does change. But again, you should note that we still have that buffer between the parked vehicles and the cyclists. And we are sure to provide two-way traffic in this case, rather than the previous example, which would be for one direction of cyclist travel.
So on some streets, we have 4-foot bike lanes, 5-foot bike lanes, 6-foot bike lanes, correct?
Right, it varies based off of the facility that we're providing cyclists with, based off whether or not it's two-way traffic, as well as the width of the roadway.
So why can't they all be 4-foot wide? Why do they have to be 5 and 6 feet wide?
So in this case, where we have one lane of traffic, you would be proposing a 4-foot bike lane against the curb adjacent to traveling vehicles. And this is not a standard that we would find typically safe for cyclists or comfortable for cyclists. We have had narrower bike lanes in other locations where it works, but in this case, we would go with our typical.
Well, I can tell you from experience, a 10-foot travel lane is not conducive to large trucks, okay? And I've seen them going over the travel lanes and over the yellow lines, as a matter of fact, including buses too, especially around curves. And you know that, Novardo. But my final point will be, when you're crossing by Eastchester Road, there are, you know, when it changes from one side of the street to the other side of the street, you're protecting the bikers from cars, but you're not protecting pedestrians from the bikers who, and you're saying that the cars will go through the stop signs and the lights, but bikers really do that. They're the ones who are going through stop signs and lights, and they're not stopping, so you're not protecting pedestrians.
Right, so there would be no conflict with pedestrians at this location where we're providing the crossover for cyclists. I mean, we wouldn't allow cyclists, wouldn't be going with this movement, and they would only be allowed to cross during this phase where the crosswalk is adjacent to it. So there would be no conflict for pedestrians crossing here.
Would it be possible for you to put up stop for pedestrians in the crosswalk signs. Well, pedestrians crossing in front of the bikes.
Well, we wouldn't typically employ that for a condition in which cyclists couldn't proceed with this. They would conflict with moving vehicles, so they couldn't go during this phase necessarily. They would be in the path of moving vehicles. So at no point in this crossover would there be a conflict between cyclists and pedestrians.
Oh, so so pedestrians won't be crossing from east to west then, you're telling me?
They're crossing from east to west with the cyclists.
Or north to south then?
Right, but with the north to south, the cyclists wouldn't be proceeding.
Thank you. I'll talk to the mayor tomorrow. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public, please?
Hi, this is Diana Finch. I just have a question about whether certain streets like White Plains Road, for instance, are ever going to be eligible for bike lanes, or are there streets that you feel are unsuitable to adding bike lanes? And I'm asking a little bit in connection with the scooter program, because the scooter people seem to feel that people would be using the scooters to travel a lot on some of the streets where there are no bike lanes, and maybe never be bike lanes.
Right, so if you recall from the map that we highlighted of our scooter pilot zone, there are a number of projects that would be planned for the southeast and northeast Bronx, and that includes White Plains Road. However, like for tonight, we're just focusing on the details of Eastchester Road. Those projects would be presented to the board at a later time.
Right, I realize that. I was just asking in the context of planning for bike lanes and looking to the future. And, you know, when you do the bike lane planning, are there certain roads that you just decide can't have bike lanes because they're just too narrow?
Right, I mean, I think width is definitely a factor in like us choosing a route. Discontinuous streets also were something that we factored out, like when we were considering the routes for this area. Also, like making sure they actually provide connections to some other existing route in the network. So there's a number of factors that do go into where we decide to put in bicycle lanes, as well as, you know, community feedback.
And we have different type of bike lane treatments. I mean, we have protected bike lanes, we have the standard bike lane, and we also have, you know, sharrows that we tend to use on very narrow roads with low volumes of traffic, where there just isn't the crash data to justify a major redesign of a street. For White Plains Road, we're actually, we gave a presentation to Community Board 12 last month about protected bike lanes underneath the elevated train from Gun Hill Road all the way up to East 223rd Street, 26th Street, sorry. That would be the first protected bike lane under an elevated train. So obviously what we learn there will be a guide to what we do elsewhere in the city where there are protected bike lanes, where there are elevated roadways. I'm sorry, where there are elevated structures over the roadway. That provides a challenge. That's a bit of a design challenge. So you know, we haven't ruled it out, but we definitely want to work out all these challenges before we start expanding bike lanes south of Gun Hill into other corridors of an elevated train.
Thank you. That's very interesting.
And
Daisy.
that presentation is on our website. So you can definitely take a look at our website and see the presentation that we gave the Community Board 12 about White Plains Road.
Rabbi, this is Daisy. I gotta make a quick comment, and I'm sorry to have to say this, but Miss Alcide, is that how you pronounce your last name? I'm so sorry.
Alcide.
Alcide. I just want to apologize for some people's behaviors and the way that they're treating you on this presentation. I think it is rude for them to be talking to you the way that they have been. So I just want you to know that as a member of this committee, I appreciate the presentation and I appreciate the time and the way that you are responding to the questions. And I just want to apologize for the rude behavior. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand. Just here to answer questions from everyone from the community. And I understand that there may be some frustrations or misunderstandings about the design, and I'm just here to clarify all of that.
And I appreciate your professionalism. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public, please?
Hi, Michael Cass here. I do have a question about the slide, page 5. I'm just trying to understand this key here. Bike network expansion, minimal, moderate, and significant, because I'm looking at the streets you have highlighted and it doesn't seem to match my expectations. Like Bronxdale Avenue is minimal. It seems like the opposite.
Right. Yeah, this can be a little misleading. This key is more a note to us about the kinds of facilities that we're implementing here in terms of like, are we doing something more shared or like, are we doing something more protected? It's just more of a reference of the facility type.
So protected would be minimal?
So protected in this case would be significant. So it would involve a significant change to the existing configuration.
Okay, because Bronxdale Avenue and White Plains Road are in the minimal red.
I think
Where you
that
have the protected
also,
lane.
sorry, there's also something to do with how far along some of the designs are, I believe. So this matches I think one of the maps that was released publicly, so we just wanted to keep it consistent with that.
So it's like how much work you have to design it?
Correct. Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And I do have a few other questions not related to this project. Novardo, I sent you an email about a month ago.
You gotta wait for that.
Okay.
At the end, please.
Right,
All
sure
the
thing.
questions have to, all the questions have to be related to this. Once we finish with this one, then we can jump in and ask again the public if they have anything like old business, new business, and things to that extent. Anybody else from the public? Going once? Going twice? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen from DOT. It was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Please forward to me whenever you can. Actually, I'll deal with Matt because I deal with Matt daily, basically. Matt, whenever you can, just send me the PDF so I can share it with board members and also a distribution list that we have with the public, so they can look
First-
into,
Yeah, no problem tomorrow, Chris. You'll have it first thing tomorrow morning with your cup of coffee when you're reading your morning emails. Promise.
Not authority, believe me.
Sounds good, Chris. You'll have it.
Thank you.
Thank you, DOT. I appreciate you guys taking the time.
Thank you,
Right.
DOT. Good success to you, DOT. Keep us moving. That's all we got to do.
I
Thank
still had questions for DOT.
Yes, but one of them gonna remain.
Okay.
Navarro, I know that you guys are busy. Can one of you remain until at least by the end of the meeting, so the questions that are related to DOT can be asked at the end, if you don't mind? I know you're busy.
I
Navarro?
can, Chris. This is Matt. I can remain.
Okay, thank you very much. Matt will remain so he can take the questions for the public at the end of the meeting. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Rabbi.
Okay, we're in old business now. Okay, let us go to our. We first got to talk about a street conaming application. So that's really more slanted to our committee. As you know, that bakery was approved, and now we have to think about the future, what we're going to do about the street co-namings application. So anybody from committee has any ideas about this, please come forward now.
I don't think streets should be named after establishments.
Okay. Does anybody from committee agree with that? Disagree? Should there be exceptions?
I agree. Sorry, I was trying to pull up the agenda and I couldn't get back to unmute myself. This is Lisa. No, I agree with Debbie. I think, the bakery is fine because we didn't have the rule firmly in place. But I personally think that is a good rule because it's a business. Businesses go from owner to owner. They're not a person. And I think if we're going to name a street after If we're going to rename streets or honorary streets, street names, it should be, I think they should be after people and their personal accomplishments, not a business.
Okay,
This is Daisy. I agree with both.
okay, so I think, Chris, that is a motion from now on.
Can I say something from the public?
Can you hold on just a second, Robert?
I'd like to say something on the resolution.
Can you hold on just a second?
No, I'm allowed to talk on the resolution, Chris. That is the right of the public.
Can you hold on because it hasn't finished? People are discussing
We're
it.
about to vote.
It's
We're
not
not,
been put into vote yet. Can you hold on 1 second? Okay, before we get into vote, guys from the committee, it would be good if you can refer again to whatever I sent to you, the documentation from City Council in which they look into it and they have different kind of positions when it comes to different kind of namings. So would you like to continue discussing this matter? Or it's up to you. If you decide to go for a motion prior to that, I have to open it to the public so they can discuss something. Rabbi, you're the chair.
yep, I would say open it to the public and then we'll make the motion and off we go.
Okay, Robert, go ahead.
While each community board currently, and I say currently, by this borough president, is allowed to have their own regulations and rules concerning the naming of streets or co-naming of streets, any council member can propose a street co-naming, no matter what the community board may say. And it is the city council that makes the final decision, not the community board, on street co-namings. That's all I'd like to say right now, and I probably am agreeing with what Chris sent you people.
Okay, Mr. Press, you got to understand one thing, that again, we're advisory board. We just advise.
I understand that because I was vice chair of traffic and transportation for almost 6 years of
I
another
know that,
community.
I'm aware of that. So that's why I'm telling you, it's just an advisory board. We send it to the city council gives the final decision. So that's why we're going to decide that we're going to pass a motion, that the motion is going to be said as. Go ahead, Rabbi.
Okay, so the motion stated simply as a meeting was held on June 7th, 2021, that from now on, any street naming would have to be directly to a person, not to a business. This committee does not approve of any sort of street naming or co-naming for a business. Do I have approval from all?
A second.
A second, excuse me, a second.
I second.
David seconds.
Davey seconds. Do we have any objections? Do we have a unanimous approval by committee?
No
Aye.
abstention. So
No, any abstentions? Okay, Chris, it sounds like unanimous by committee, recommending that all street naming should be after an individual person, not a business or anything of that sort. Okay, we move on. B, e-scooter questions for full board meeting. Okay, so as you know, we spoke last meeting about e-scooter questions. Does anybody from either committee or actually from the public have any questions that they want to bring up for the full board meeting, which will take place in whatever 3 weeks?
and also I
Rabbi,
sent it to all of you guys. I mean, even to the distribution list when it comes to about the presentation in PDF from DOT about the e-scooters. So members of the committee, if you have any questions, you don't have to ask them tonight. But if you want to, go ahead. But if you still want to reflect onto it and you wanted to send it to me via email, please do send it to me via email and CC Jeremy, so at least both of us can be aware of it. And after that, when the board meeting happens after the presentation, at least we're going to be able to have a bunch of questions put together. So at least no repetition is going to be Like, for example, might be members of the committee today and also might be members of the board tomorrow that they're going to have almost the same questions. So at least we can compile them and can have them ready, send them to DOT in advance. So at least when they come, they're going to be able to ask the questions.
Could I make that offer? Could I make that offer to the public, Chris?
Yes,
Well,
no, why not? I mean, yes, that
Is
would be
that a
great.
yes?
Yes.
Okay, so to say it
Well,
quite simple.
I want to add one of the things I want to ask. That is there any way that they can make sure that these e-scooters don't go on like the Bronx River Parkway, the Hutchinson Parkway, and roadways such as that, because bicycles and those e-scooters are not even allowed on these roadways. And I was wondering if there's a way for them to govern GPS wise to not allow that to happen.
I thought they answered that at the last meeting, and
Yeah,
they
I thought they
said,
did
They
too.
did not. They did not. They did not.
It was discussed.
Yeah, they said
It
that they
was
shut
discussed.
down, that they'll turn off if they get close to, if they're
Yeah.
entering a highway. That's what
Yeah,
I thought I heard.
I kind of remember that.
100% right, Lisa. You're 100% right.
That's
They
what
will
I
not
heard.
they will not operate on parkways.
Right, just like it can.
How is it gonna know the difference between?
Okay, one at a time, Debbie, please, one at a time.
And
So that your question was answered by Mr. Keith Kalb, which is the
on
Director of
Parkway,
Community Affairs for DOT. I'm sorry?
can you hear me?
Coming in
No,
very
go ahead.
mumbled, very mumbled.
Can you hear me?
You're now
Yes, go
much
ahead.
better.
Yeah. How are they gonna know whether it's going on a parkway or whether it's going under a parkway, say like when it's going under the Bronx River up Fordham Road? How are they gonna know? How is it gonna know the difference?
Technology.
GPS.
Technology. That's the answer to that.
Mr. Kalb, give him the right response, please, so we can put a cover on these questions.
GPS.
There you go.
GPS. Technology. Okay,
Okay.
so let's move on. This again.
Actually, I'm sorry, Rabbi, I just, along those same lines, my question is that same technology going to be implemented if they try to ride on sidewalks or sidewalk, or 'cause I think there was a lot of talking at the community board, the full board meeting, but I think one of the concerns was the scooters on sidewalks. So are they going to be allowed on sidewalks or will they shut down on sidewalks?
Okay, I think to Lisa, I kind of get I'm remembering from a month ago. I think they did not think they could decipher if they're on a sidewalk. The only thing they could decipher is going on highways
The
and
highway.
if they were out of the district, if they were taking the thing to, I don't know, Jerome Avenue. Or Yankee Stadium.
Right.
That's what I remember. I don't remember anything, and again, Keith could correct me. I don't remember anything about saying if they go on a sidewalk, what's to stop them.
That's correct. You guys have a full grasp of the concept of e-scooters.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought, but I want, because it came up at the board meeting, I just wanted to confirm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any
Now
more
remember,
questions?
this e-scooters. We want folks who are utilizing the e-scooter to park them in the furniture zone on the sidewalk once they're completed their ride.
Right.
And again, as we discussed at the e-scooter pilot briefing, the e-scooters will be allowed to ride anywhere a bicyclist can ride now. Okay, and they should not be riding on the sidewalk. These devices will only be accessible to adults 18 and over, and 18-year-old and older adults in New York City cannot ride on sidewalks.
It's probably illegal, Keith. I don't know if anybody ever got a ticket for that, but
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, Keith. Quick question. Since they're going to be 18 and over, and if they're stopped by the police, quote unquote, are they going to get a ticket the same way as a driver, a regular car driver, or a
No, they would get a violation like a bicyclist would if they were riding on the
bicyclist?
sidewalk.
Okay, I got you. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any more questions on e-scooters? Okay. Okay, so we go to new business now. I think maybe we should get some good news for once. I don't know if you guys heard at the MTA board meeting, they say they're really going to start opening up those extra stations at Morris Park and Hunts Point. Where's the other two? Co-op City, I think, is one. I think there's one further down the line in the South Bronx. So it sounded for their capital projects, they're really, really going to start to work on this. So hopefully we'll see that to fruition one day. And I think that would really, really enhance the neighborhood. Any other new business?
Rabbi, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Keep on going. Where'd you go?
Lisa,
Lisa, we don't hear you.
Oh, hello? How about
There you
now?
go.
Hello, Lisa.
Yeah, go
How are
ahead.
you, Lisa?
My mute button is acting very strangely. I'm sorry. I actually had a quick old business question for DOT. I wish the commissioner would have stayed on. But if you can just, who is here? Is it Mike?
Hey,
or
Keith Kalb is here. I'm
Keith?
the deputy borough commissioner,
Oh, hi,
and
Keith.
I can answer any questions.
So this is really old business. So,
Okay.
and the commissioner is familiar with it. So over a year ago, I think right before the pandemic, maybe a month or two before the pandemic, I raised the issue of Leidig Avenue between Paulding and Hone, and how it had I don't know what they're called. They're just like lumps. They're the opposite of potholes. They were like
Hummocks.
lumps raised, and
We
so
call them hummocks.
hummocks.
Lisa.
Okay, great.
Hummocks.
So the
They're
commissioner
caused
said
by
he would
they're
have the
caused by
street.
they're
He said he would have the
caused by-
street raised, and it was raised, and it's just been raised for over a year now, and it's never been repaved over.
I'm sorry. It's been raised.
Is that the word where they kind of like sand it down and rough it up?
Milling. You're talking
no,
about
they
milling the
milled
roadway.
it down, kids.
Milled it
They
down.
milled it down, right?
Yes.
So that's how they got rid of the hummock. They're not going to resurface it if the roadway is hummocking. That means it's excessive. It's probably because of the topography of the roadway.
It's a hill. Yeah, it's a pretty steep hill.
Yes. Again, hummocks are caused by when the roadway heats up and pressure. Heavy vehicles usually happens around bus stops and bus routes. That's why you'll notice around the city at most bus stops we have a concrete pad.
Yes.
Because that is the problem that we have at lots of bus stops. When
Right.
the roadway heats up in the summer, asphalt is pliable and it becomes flexible by nature, unlike concrete. And when the pressure of a vehicle and the heat, constant pressure causes hummocks. Usually it happens on roadways that are very hilly, uphill or downhill, and the pressure of the vehicles on those roadways and the heat combination causes hummocks to happen. And so the way we resolve that is by milling a Rago machine, which is a small milling machine, to even out that hummock. So that doesn't mean we're coming in to repave it. What will happen is when we do come to repave that roadway, we will make sure that it's fixed when it's resurfaced. But that was the commissioner sent out a crew to just eliminate the hummock. And so that's the way that we repair hummocks. We just mill it. So just scrape off, sort of like a nail file, if you will. Scrape off the top of that piece so that the roadway doesn't have that wavy, flex in it.
So it's never going to be repaved. It's just going to stay like that forever.
Nope. When we come to repave those roads, it'll be repaired.
Oh, so just kind of like on the normal, like 5 or 10 year schedule?
It's sort of like a Band-Aid, right? It's like a Band-Aid.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. Well, that I was just wondering, like, they forget about it or
Nope.
what?
Because they
No, we
did.
didn't forget
They
about
did.
it.
They did say they were gonna mill it and repave it, not just mill it.
Right. That's what the commissioner said.
Right.
For a year ago, but that was before COVID, and then COVID stopped everything.
And it, I'm
But
not sure if
adding-
Keith's familiar with the street, but that street's
I'm
heavily used
Debbie, I'm
with trucks too.
familiar with every street in the Bronx.
Okay.
I'm familiar with every street. I'm very familiar with it. Yeah, I mean, I'll double check and see what the commissioner committed to, but our roadway folks generally don't repave a roadway just to repair hummocks. That's not how hummocks are repaired.
Got it. So do
we
you
would
know?
we would just be adding more asphalt, which would, guess what, cause hummocks to reappear because there's too much asphalt on the slope of the roadway. And so this summer, what will happen is then it will hummock again.
Right. So then that goes back to my original question. So then are you just going to leave it the way it is and never repave it?
No, we'll repave when the rest of the road deteriorates and the rest of the road needs to be repaved. It will be repaved. It'll be added to the schedule and included in the community board's allocation for resurfacing.
Right. But you just said if you repave it, then the same problem is going to happen again.
No, not if we repave it. If we put asphalt on top of where we just removed it from. So like the roadway is pushing up, right? So that means that the asphalt is pliable during when it warms up, right?
Right.
So the roadway is pushing. It's causing what we call, like you said, opposite of a speed bump. It's a hummock, right? It's not a pothole. It's a hummock. It's a push up in the asphalt, right? To repair that, we don't put more asphalt on top of it because that's just going to have excess asphalt on that roadway, which is going to just hummock again. So right now it's milled and evened out, so we have a more even riding surface. I don't know off the top of my head if Lydig Avenue is scheduled for resurfacing this year, but we can check our schedule and see if it's scheduled to be resurfaced. Maybe it's already scheduled, but that's not how we generally fix hummocks by
Right. No, I get
milling
it.
and then putting more asphalt on it.
Yeah, I'm just a little confused because isn't resurfacing putting more asphalt on it?
Yeah, but it would be yes, but a whole roadway would be milled again.
Okay.
Yes, of course, and it would be brand new asphalt. Correct. Yes, that's exactly what resurfacing is.
Okay. So this is a problem that's just going to keep happening.
Likely, yeah, because there's really nothing that can be done except for making the roadways concrete. And in New York City, concrete roadways don't last because of the freeze and thaw of our seasons.
Got it.
So concrete roadways don't last very long in New York City, and they're impossible to maintain. And so that's why we only use we only use concrete
for the bus stops.
Underneath the roadway and at bus stops, correct, and for sidewalks.
Okay, so thank you for that, Keith. If you could let us know when that's up for repaving, that would be great. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Any other old or new business? Going once.
I have a point of information for you, Rabbi.
Go ahead.
As far as your renaming, that is something that should be in the bylaws, a section as far as how long a person has to be deceased before naming or co-naming a street after them. And one can now put in whether you want institutions or businesses to be put in, but that should be in the bylaws. It's not a committee resolution. You can check with the borough president's office on that. Thank you.
Okay, will do. Okay, anybody else?
So Navardo did answer my question privately in chat. For everyone's benefit, there's supposed to be a quick curb on Morris Park Avenue at the intersection of Unionport Road. That was in the road diet designs and it wasn't installed. He's going to look. He's going to follow up on that. And another thing, regarding the community board 10 presentation for the Pelham Bay bus improvements, I don't believe that was uploaded to either the DOT current project site or the Better Buses page. Could that be made available?
Sure, Michael. We'll check into that. I thought it was, but we'll double check.
Thank you.
No problem.
we'll get back to you tomorrow or Wednesday about that.
Okay, thank you, committee. Thank you for the public for being here. Thank you, DOT. Keith, send our best to everybody, and everybody have a blessed evening.
Okay.
Thank you,
On
everyone.
the record, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, DOT presenters. Thank you. Time 8:30.
Keith, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, I was trying to put in a 311 about 650 Frogs Neck Expressway, and it's impossible to put it into 311 or to DOT because it thinks it's a highway. There's major potholes over there. Is there any way you guys can do something to fix the potholes there, because it's impossible to put it in as a 311 or the DOT site?
Debbie, it's Matt. Send me an email as always with a picture and we'll log a case number for you. That's very easy for us to do. So like you always do, just send me an email with a picture.
Yeah, because the 301 guy was very,
That's okay. We'll handle it.
Yeah, he was very patient and helpful, but it was impossible to do.
Right, that's okay. We'll handle it. Just send us an email with a picture and we'll handle it.
Okay, and you got my message in the chat that I sent you the other picture?
Yes, I did. So I'll keep an eye out for both of your emails tomorrow.
All right, thanks.
No problem.
Okay, for a second time, this meeting's ended 8:31. Have a nice evening, everybody, and be safe.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you,
Chris.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.